Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today I thought I would try out a bit of Painter, specifically red-white Painter, which has been gaining a bit of traction lately because Swords to Plowshares is just a really important tool that the deck can definitely enjoy having, and it sort of smooths out some of the matchups because there are a lot of creatures in the format right now. In case you're unfamiliar with Painter's Servant, we have Painter's Servant here, so it turns all cards, whether they're in the battlefield, in our opponent's hand, in our opponent's library, which is the important zone, it makes them all the colour of our choice in addition to other colours. Grindstone, we point this at our opponent, we mill two cards if they're the same colour, we do this again, so these two cards will mill out our opponent's entire library in one go. That is our combo. We've got some tutors to help get there in the form of Goblin Engineer, which can put either of these in the graveyard, as well as some useful silver bullets like Ensnaring Bridge, Phyrexian Dragon Engine, Saga Lantern, Breya's Apprentice. So we've got those that we can search up as well as some fast mana if we need it here. And Goblin Welder allows us, alongside the Engineer, to then flip these things in and out and gain some value. So we can use Phyrexian Dragon Engine to be drawing a couple of extra cards a turn, or we can gain some value with the Breya's Apprentice. We can grind pretty effectively that way. We also have the Urza Saga as a tutor, which can get some of our fast mana, but most importantly gets our Grindstone. So it's just another way of pulling out our combo. That's why we only need 2 Grindstones now. We also have the Fable Mirror Breaker to help filter our draws. It's just a good card. We can start copying Goblin Engineers or Painter's Servants to make sure that we definitely don't get knocked off of our Painter's Servant when we try and combo, or just finding more combo pieces by copying the Engineer. It's a really good tool. Also gives us treasures that we then get to weld in and out. So there's a lot to like there. And then we've just got some removal, like I mentioned, the Swords to Plowshares. We've got 3 Furies kicking in here. Just an excellent card. And if you ever start copying it with a Fable Mirror Breaker, you're going to be doing some pretty solid, fair victories there. And then we run 5 Red Blast in the main deck. So Red Blast is reasonable in Legacy. There's been times where you will play Red Blast in your main deck. That's how reasonable it is as a main deckable card. You play 1 or 2 copies in certain metagames. However, because we have Painter's Servant, we name blue, we just have this 1 mana Vindicate or Counterspell. And that's incredibly powerful. In our mana base, we've got 2 City of Traitors, 4 Ancient Tombs to help power out some of our stuff, as well as a bunch of basics, but no basic planes here. We're just relying on these 2 Plateaus, and then this mana, and the treasures from Fable Mirror Breaker to cast our Swords to Plowshares. And we do have 2 Great Furnace for some artifacts we can do some welding shenanigans with. Another thing to know about this list is we have 2 Karn. So some of these red-white lists have been running 4th Eolingus, and some have been running Karn. So I'm going to try the Karn build today, because this was one that recently did quite well in a challenge, so I wanted to give it a go. In the sideboard, we've got a little bit of a Karn board here, so we've got Magus Lattice, Tormod's Crypt, and Ensnaring Bridge. And we can also go and get the Ethersworn Canonist. The Thorn of Amethyst is something we can find, although this is something that we're more likely to be boarding in, but this is definitely something we can find with Karn in Game 1. We've got some more removal in Lightning Bolt and Fury, and another Plow, so we're definitely geared towards creatures, which kind of shows you where the meta is at right now. We also have another Red Blast, like when these are good, why not have more of them? A little bit of Graveyard Hate in our Faerie Macabre here to go alongside our Saga Lantern and the Tormod's Crypt that we can fetch with Karn. And a couple of Magus of the Moon. Now, Magus of the Moon might seem like a bit of a nombo with our Urza Saga, but for the matchups where Magus of the Moon is good, it is much better against them than it is against us. So it's worth taking the hit in order to get that going. It's a bit like where lands used to play Chalice of the Void, even though it still ran crop rotation. It's just when you need the Chalice of the Void or the Blood Moon, Magus of the Moon, whatever, it can just be more powerful. And because we're the ones casting it, we get to decide when it comes into play, so we can shape our draw, our sort of sequencing around it. All right, and that's it. So some Painter action. And if you are a fan of Painter action, there is somebody who I highly recommend. There's a player who has a channel called Light Walker. I will link in the description below. Easily the best Painter content you'll see. Absolute Painter master. Really enjoyable to watch as well. It's got great banter, so definitely check out their channel. I'll put it in the description below. And remember to like and subscribe to my channel. That also helps me out too. And let's play some Painter's Servant. If you're looking to play Legacy on MTGO like me, why not try Card Hoarder? They're a rental service that I personally use, and I found them better than other rental services that I've used in the past. So why not give them a try? Alright, our opening hand for Game 1 is a little bit sad because we have no coloured mana sources. So this is an easy mulligan. We have a lot less fast mana than other Painter decks, so we are a little bit more on the grind. So what does this one do for us? Engineer is fine. I'm not in love with this hand, if I'm being honest with you. Kind of slow. A little bit reluctant to go any lower here. And we'll keep, and we will... I think this Karn might... I don't really want to get rid of all of our action though. So we kind of want this Lotus Petal as a thing that we can weld. Maybe we throw away a land here. We've got quite a lot of lands in our deck. Right, so we'll just leave that on a basic mountain. We're not going to play out the engineer on turn 1 using a Lotus Petal because we would like to have a Lotus Petal so we can actually do some engineering with it. Otherwise, we don't have any artifacts at present. Right, a tropical island from our opponents. That could be... Bug Beans is the most likely. That's the most played deck at the moment. An Ancient Tomb. This allows us to play around a daze, so I think we will do that. Bug Beans does run daze. This could also be some sort of Omnitel. Alright, yes, I'd like to use the ability. I think, because the situation we're in right now, we just need to start grinding some value. So we have two options. We have the Phyrexian Dragon Engine or the Breya's Apprentice for our sort of value grind. Which one of these do I think is slightly better? I think, given that we've got a lot of cards in our hand right now, I think I'd rather have the Breya's Apprentice for now. We're not going to expose our artifacts, so our opponent doesn't know it's there. They might also be a Witherbloom command deck. We don't just want to give them a free thing to blow up whilst they search for a land. Or they sort of mill and do it. Okay, so we might lose our Ancient Tomb here, but that's fine. This is looking quite a lot like Bug Beans now. Ponder? There's a Ponder. So next turn, we Breya's Apprentice. And that's going to be pretty reasonable. A Pyroblast. That's quite exciting. Plus artifact. Just in case our opponent's running Stifle or something, I'm going to do this now. Alright. So we have a Pyroblast that we can hold up. We've got Breya's Apprentice. I'd rather not fetch, but in case we do want to find a plateau. But if our opponent forces us to crack now, then I will get a mountain, most likely. We have a red pip card in our hand. Our opponent doesn't seem like they're going to be putting many creatures on the stack. I don't think this is our fight with this Pyroblast. We can use it to blow up a Murktide or something, which is definitely going to be one of the scarier things for us to have to contend with. All right. So I think we'll go to attacks with our Thopter token. And we just start grinding some value using our Breya's Apprentice here. Let's get rid of the Thopter. We're looking for a land, ideally. There it is. Okay, so now we can play out another Engineer. Our opponent's going for a Force of Will here. Do I Pyroblast this? I think so. I still think I want to get a mountain here, though. Right, let's Pyroblast this. This can come in, and we can get a Phyrexian Dragon Engine. And then we just got two different grind plans. The other option here is to attack our opponent's graveyard, but that doesn't seem very exciting to me. Because we'll be pretty slow on that. I think we just get the Dragon Engine. Or are we supposed to put the... No, I think it's a Dragon Engine. We just start weldering that back and forth and just gain some value that way. I guess we missed 1 point of damage with the Goblin Engineer, but we didn't know what we were drawing off of the Breya's Apprentice, so we might have been in a situation where the Goblin Engineer could have been something we'd use. I guess if they kill our Breya's Apprentice, that is our only artifact right now. Up the beanstalk, sure. So a fatal push on the... It's going to be a fatal push on something. Could be a Murderous Cut, I suppose. There it is. We're targeting the Breya's Apprentice. Yep, so that's our only artifact now. So that is a little bit of an issue for us. In our deck full of artifacts. A Grindstone, you say? Let me have this Grindstone. Alright, let's get our Breya's Apprentice back. And then we can hold this up and we can start looking for a Painter's Servant. Like, the cards in our hand aren't really doing very much for us. So I'm pretty happy to turn our Thopter token into a Phyrexian Dragon Engine. That's also a 4-power threat. But we'll see what mana our opponent leaves up. Because we'd rather keep the Goblin Engineer to play around removal spells. Even if that means we lose a little bit of value by not weldering, engineering or whatever at the end of turn. So at the moment we've got an engine up and running. So we should play into that rather than getting all hasty and just engineering our guy away. Okay, so we're back. Fable and Break, that's quite a nice one. That's probably worth playing, although that does take us off of... Alright, I think we're going to have a look at the top card of our library first. What do we find here? City of Traitors. An excellent draw. Alright. Exactly how we drew it up there. I think this is better than the Karn. This isn't really a matchup where we care about Fury. So we at least have one card to pitch. And this way we hold up two Welderings. So what are we doing? I think we're probably just holding back right now. And then we'll welder the Apprentice away for a Dragon Engine. So just every time we're doing this, we're accruing card advantage. A Mystic Sanctuary. Is this going to return the Ponder or the Murderous Cut? The Murderous Cut, sure. I would very much like to kill one of our creatures. A Ponder, sure. So this is going to put the Murderous Cut into the hand with enough mana to cast it. And cantrip off of it as well. Right, our opponent's had enough. Our engine is just too robust. Awesome. So, what do we want to do against this deck? It's an interesting one. So they are a Wasteland deck. They're also a deck with a pretty vulnerable mana base. We could try and attack the mana base using our Magus of the Moons. That is an option. Fury is not amazing here. We get to clean out the Orcish Bowmasters, but we don't really care about Orcish Bowmasters that much. It's the Murktide Regents we care about. So maybe we could trim these Furies and we can play a couple of Magus of the Moons and maybe another Red Elemental Blast. That way we can force through some of the scary things. We can keep the 3 plows in just in case we need to get rid of some stuff. They will have things like Leovold, but our Silver Bullets of Saga Lantern and Ensnaring Bridge both seem pretty useful here. We do have to worry about the Pernicious Deed that our opponent can have. I don't think we're going as far as Faerie Macabre to deal with like Life from the Loam type nonsense. I think we're just going to roll in like this. So quite often these bug decks have one island. Okay, this is turn 1 Welder, turn 2 Karn, or turn 1 Fable the Mirror Breaker. There's definitely some interesting options there. Ponder from our opponent. But we know our opponent has Dazes in their deck, because that's like one of the things that makes Bugsbeans kind of flexible in some ways. That it can kind of play almost a tempo-y game with certain hands. So I think the play here is just a lowly Goblin Welder here. They counter this with a Daze. That's annoying, but it's not the end of the world. It means that we can next turn deploy our things. I don't want to play out things like Lotus Petal when our opponent has Wither Bloom commands in their deck. Right, Wasteland. So let's not play into that one. Blue and 1. Chill. Chill. Huh. Alright. So this is tech that people are playing against goblins at the moment. So what is our play here? We can just try and stick a Karn now and see if it works. I think that's better than letting our opponent untap and do some cantripping. Or we're just in, are we? Now, part of the problem we have here is that we don't have anything that exciting to fight. 3 mana, 4/5. The Lattice is kind of an interesting option here. Like, it's a little ways off. I wish we had a Liquid Metal Coating in our sideboard. That's what I really want for this situation. I'll take a Lattice. It does actually counter the Chill. So there is that. Opponent's going to spend their Wasteland attacking our... it's going to spend their Wasteland trying to attack our mana. That's fine. Kind of wish we had a little bit of a better tool to work with our sideboard. Like a Liquid Metal Coating there, and I think this game is very, very heavily in our favour there. Now it's still kind of poised. Alright. It did not shuffle off that Ponder. Yep, there goes Wasteland. Casting Spell is going to be a little bit challenging for us, since they cost 2 more. Very unreasonable. So we could play out this Ancient Tomb, and we get to Pyroblast their Chill. That seems pretty reasonable to me. They didn't have a counterspell before, when we played the Karn. I think it's probably fine to just fire this off now. Alright, they've got a response. Is it a Brainstorm looking for an answer? Or is it an actual answer they just have? It's a Brainstorm looking for an answer, that's good. Obviously it'd be better if it resolved, but, you know, I'll take a suboptimal Brainstorm. At least we're getting some value out of this. Did they miss? They missed. Oh. We're just going to plus this to keep some loyalty up on it. Alright. So we can now do Fable the Mirror Breaker, loot away our Lattice, and then put it back in with a Welder. So they have to counter our Fable. Unless they've got Graveyard Hate. Which they might do. They're probably going to be playing things like Surgicals in this matchup. A Murktide Regent, sure. That makes a Lattice plan slightly more tricky. Karn the Great Creator. Alright, let's go and get Ensnaring Bridge. Alright. We're pretty close to just lattice locking our opponent here. Karn is a powerful Magic the Gathering card. Our opponent's hand is stacked full of spells, so they're not playing out lands. So I'm curious what those spells are. Do I want to hold up the illusion of Red Blast here, is the question. I don't want to play out this Great Furnace just yet. I think I do want to hold up the illusion of Red Blast. Are we in with this? So next turn we can put the lattice on the stack. If they counter it, we welder it back in using our Great Furnace. And our opponent's locked out of the game at that point. +1, no targets, because we don't want to just make our things easier to kill. And then next turn we have Lattice Lock. If you're unfamiliar with how Lattice Lock works, it makes all things artifacts, and Karn says artifacts don't have active abilities, so no lands, tapping for mana here. Alright, the Bowmasters is going to ping down our Welder. That's pretty good. We're not going to sack anything in response here. So that means our Lattice Lock is less likely to go through because we need to get through a counterspell. And our opponent's probably been sandbagging a counterspell. So we might see if we draw something like a Red Blast. We also are dissuaded from using this Fable the Mirror Breaker. It feels like our opponent has another Bowmasters, but we do have another Karn. Yep, so there's the other Bowmasters. So they're probably killing our Karn here rather than... Oh no, they're going for our Shaman. Interesting. Plowshares. So I don't think we want to do any of this. I think we've kind of put ourselves in a space where we need to be playing this Lattice. If this resolves, that's good for us, but our opponent has seen this coming for a few turns now. So they've probably been sandbagging a counterspell here. Oh no, they didn't have anything. It's kind of weird that they scooped that considering they have the Bowmasters, but I guess what we can do is just plus on the bridge and then we have a 3/3 blocker and then they can't do anything with it. But they get to attack with both of these. They can force through 1 damage, but again, it's just going to get worse and worse. But yeah, Karn came clutch. Let's go to round 2. We are 1-0. Right, we are on the play. Got some removal. We got an Engineer. The Karn feels a little bit of a stretch at 4 mana. I think this is fine. Right, so I think we're incentivized here to either play out this Grindstone or this Bloodstained Mire so that we can plow them. I think it's the Bloodstained Mire. I don't want to get just rocked by like a sticker goblin or something. We can at least interact with it on. Okay. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Yikes. That's pretty good against our graveyard plan. So that makes our Goblin Engineer look pretty bad. So we'll give them the activated abilities of our creatures if we use our Goblin Engineer. So that's kind of awkward. Not going to lie. I don't think we're going to have our mana base under attack here, so I'm pretty happy to get a Plateau here. We're going to get this Goblin Engineer, but we're going to fail. We're not going to get anything because of their Soul Cauldron. We don't want to just give them anything. I guess we could take something out of our deck that we don't want in our deck. Or what don't we want in our deck? I don't know. A lot of our deck seems pretty good here. I don't even know if they're on the blue build or if they're just on the straight up Boros or the mono white build. Because we could take out one of our... No, we can't take out anything here, right? I'm just trying to think. No, we say no to this. Just trying to think if there's anything that we don't mind losing. But I don't think it's necessary. Yeah, we're just going to eat our graveyard every turn. Alright. So what our plan is to have the Engineer so that we can react to a Soul Cauldron. So if their Soul Cauldron's tapped, we play the other one and we immediately get it into play. Alright, Fable the Mirror Breaker is a pretty good one. So we're probably going to plow this and play Grindstone unless we find something useful. That's a pretty useful one. Let's get the Grindstone in. And the secret to playing against this deck is just to make sure they don't have any creatures in play as best you can. Because that's when it all goes horribly wrong for you. Okay, so we have the combo. We just need time and mana. Our opponent probably doesn't have a huge array of removal in their deck. So we might be able to get there over the course of 2 turns. I would like to draw a land next turn so I can deploy Painted Servant alongside Swords to Plowshares. because we might have to source the Plowshares this turn or next turn, depending on what our opponent does. They're not playing the Gyruda build, so that's interesting. Where's this one? Source, that's our source Plowshares, isn't it? Okay. Den of the Bugbear. We do get to mess with our opponent's artifact as well. So if they put an artifact in their graveyard, that's actively good for us. So now we're in this awkward situation here. If we play Painter's Servant, our opponent might be a Grindstone deck themselves. That's a very real possibility. Would have loved to have drawn a land. Sorry, this is an Engineer, not Welder. We don't get to mess with our opponent's artifact, sorry. Alright, I think we are... Are we doing this? Sure, let's do this. The hope here is that our opponent is not a Grindstone deck. So, a land gives us the win next turn, provided our opponent doesn't have anything. Otherwise, we can untap into double removal spell. And one of those removal spells can hit the Sword Cauldron, which means we can then play Goblin Engineer and use that to get some mana in a roundabout fashion. You know, we can draw some more cards with Breya's Apprentice, stuff like that, to try and dig our way into the other mana source we need. But we might be dead on our opponent's next turn, because that's kind of what the Sword Cauldron decks tend to do. Alright, Fail the Mirror Breaker is flipped. City of Traitors. Our opponent's got all the mana in the world over there. They could play a Walking Ballista for 3 and ping down our Painter's Servant. Alright, just to Fail the Mirror Breaker, that's pretty good. Still leaves them with 3 mana to work with though. Including a red mana for something like a Lightning Bolt potentially, if our opponent is on the mono-red side of things. Right, I think if we can untap here, we're in a good spot. Right, so we've untapped. What next? We did not find a land, so that's fun, isn't it? I think we are on ploughing this and holding up Red Blast. We can hit the Soul Cauldron if that's what we feel we need to do. I would turn on our Engineer. Alright, so they're going to do some looting with their Fail the Mirror Breaker. They're not going to do any looting. Wow, that must be pretty good. Goblin Bombardiers. That is a good one. Let's try and Pyroblast this. Alright, so they got another one. Okay, so it does both work. This is an activated ability, isn't it? So they can attack with this and fling their Soul Cauldron at our guy. Is that right? Or they can fling this treasure. That's an awkward one, isn't it? Okay, they didn't want to throw the Cauldron at our Painter's Servant. They just wanted to take out the Engineer. Does that mean they got a removal spell for our Painter? Another Engineer. Well, I guess we're not casting it, right? So here goes nothing. Is there an artifact that we don't want? Honestly, all of these cards are good. Right. We're still in search of a land. Our opponent's got a flipped Reflection of Kiki-Jiki. They're about to make a treasure, which they can then throw at our creature. This is a pretty sick little combo. Agatha's Soul Cauldron is a weird card. It's clearly powerful though. It's just quite an interesting niche effect that can do lots of things when you work towards it. And Broadside Bombardiers being a thing you can put under it feels pretty strong. Right, our opponent's got City of Traitors over there. Goodbye, City of Traitors. Hello. Is this going to be a Walking Ballista for 3? Feels like it. Nope, just a Case of Chaos Venture. Yikes. Okay, that's a good thing to put counters on, isn't it? Because that ends up pretty large. Our opponent's deck was really interesting, though. Ancient Tomb, you say? Our opponent's got a removal spell. It's probably going to be... I'm just trying to work out, is there a way that we lose here? If we mill them now, they can kill us. Because they can Agatha's Soul Cauldron one of their guys, and then Agatha's Soul Cauldron another guy after they untap. So we have to do this in our opponent's upkeep. So they're going to get to put like one thing under it. Because we can beat a single Walking Ballista. We've got a removal spell here. If they do, I think we just lose. Trumpeting Carnosaur. Wowzers trousers. I have no idea what's in our opponent's deck, but it looks cool. So what do we hit? Fury, Chaos Cavalier, Blood Moon, Shadow Skull Smashing. Alright, we're not coming back from here. Our opponent's got the lethal on board. Yeah, our opponent's deck looks sweet. So removal feels like it's probably going to be quite handy here. So Lightning Bolt, Source to Plowshares, Fury. I'm not such a fan of these blasts. Like, do we want to keep one blast as a nice thing that we can eventually do, or no? I think we need these Faerie Macabres. Karn seems actively good here. I'm not sure how much our opponent's going to be pressuring us though. So is this an Ensnaring Bridge matchup? I don't think so. I think we take out the bridge and we can always go and find it with the Karn if we want to. Like, I think our opponent... Oh, actually, no, that's not true. We saw the Cave of Chaos Venture we're talking about. So if we want this Faerie Macabre, something else has to give. I'm kind of a little dubious about this Mox Opal. But... This is a tough one. Maybe it's a Fable? Is that ridiculous? It feels kind of ridiculous to be thinking about cutting one of those. Or are we cutting a Grindstone? If we cut a Grindstone, we can always fetch it with a Karn. So we've effectively got 3 copies of Grindstone instead of 2 now. Alright. Turn 2 Fable. Or turn 1 Painter, turn 2 Fable. That seems like we're getting towards something that resembles a win. And if we find a Grindstone on turn 2, we do just have the Goldfish, because we'll have 4 mana, 1 for Grindstone, 3 for grinding. So sign me up. Play this. We did take out our blue blast, so our red blast. If we name red, it turns on our opponent's Fury, and we don't have one at present, so I think we are going to name blue again. So let our opponent think that we still have blue blasts, so they might play around them. Taking bites out of our life total with our Ancient Tombs when our opponent is a Cave of Chaos Venture deck could prove a little bit squiffy. But next turn we can play the Goblin Engineer if we want to. But if we don't draw an artifact, I'm more incentivized, I think, to play this Fable the Mirror Breaker. Is our opponent about to play a Fable, or do they have something scarier? Start. Okay, they've got a Fable, sure. That's fine. Plow. Do you want to plow this away, or I think we're just going into our own game plan more than anything here. So this gives us a lot of potential of winning the game next turn. Now we've got this Fable the Mirror Breaker going. I guess we're probably likely to win in 2 turns. That's our Goldfish, but we have the possibility to draw a one-off grind. Oh, we've only got 1 of Grindstone as well, actually. So it's not actually that odds on. But we're very odds on for winning in 2 turns with the Engineer. But we also have a Plow, which I'm very happy about. Our opponent, once again, did not use Fable the Mirror Breaker's ability. That's kind of scary. Last time we did that, they won the game. So, yep. So they want this treasure. Is it worth blocking here? No, our opponent has Walking Ballista. I don't want to give them an easy Walking Ballista on our guy. No, you don't play an Agatha's Soul Cauldron deck without a Walking Ballista in it, that's for sure. A Chrome Box. Something big. Shatter Skull Smashing. Yikes. Well, that's... doesn't actually change how long it takes us to win the game. Which is interesting. Alright. Yes, I think we're going to get rid of these 2 Ancient Tombs. Okay. So we don't really care about our mana base here. Although we did board in... I guess it doesn't really matter with the Magus, right? No, we didn't board in the Magus here, did we? No, that was the last round. Ignore me. Let's play this Goblin Engineer. This gets us a Grindstone, which we can put into play next turn. This is our only Grindstone. Obviously, we do have Karn still. I don't think we're killing this just yet. We might have more juicy targets if they play something like a Bombardiers. Then we'll probably want to tag that. Also, we could tag the actual Fable. Now it's flipped. Just wait and see what our opponent does here. Unlicensed Hearse. That's pretty good. So they can take out our Painter and our Grindstone here. Yikes. Okay. We are in yikes mode. I see. And the Bombardiers. This is worth shooting with our Plow here. Because we're just not going to come back from this if this starts doming us every turn or removing our guys. Karn, that's helpful. Alright, I think we're going to... Are we going to start just strip mining our opponent's permanents here? Or are we incentivized to get something? So they can attack for 4 in this... Yeah, I think we're just going to start working away at our opponent's permanents here. and give it enough life that it can survive. And then we can start doing some copying our Goblin Engineer, getting a Painted Servant, get the Grindstone with the Karn. So how much mana would that line be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have the win next turn, right? If our opponent doesn't have anything. Alright, they're copying this. But if they both attack Karn, we can't block. We'll lose that line. Because the Hearth will get us. Right, I think we just let these hit. And we're just going to sort of go into a slower, grindier way of winning this game using our Reflection and Engineer, with Karn just sniping out all their mana sources. We get rid of this. Oops. So this copies our Engineer. This finds us a Phyrexian Dragon Engine, I think. That's the best one here. And then we will plow this guy. Put this into play. Draw 2 cards. Sorry, draw 3 cards. And now we're really cooking with gas here. Broadside Bombardiers is not a card they can cast at present because they don't have any red sources. So I think this game is looking pretty favourable for us. Alright, our opponent agrees and they want to use their clock efficiently. I appreciate that. I think I'm happy with how I've sideboarded here and we're just going to go back in. So our opening hand here is kind of interesting. We can just play a Saga game and use Furies to clear out our opponent's creatures. And then at some point we'll have some mana here. We can go and get a Mox and then start playing some other spells. Honestly, I quite like this one. This matchup is very much about keeping our opponent's creatures off the board. So I'm down to try this. Down to the Bugbear pass from our opponent, sure. And there's a Saga. We have a very telegraphed Ancient Tomb in our hand right now. Alright, Ancient Tomb from our opponent into Fable of the Mirror Breaker, sure. So we can try and clear this out, or we can wait till it flips and try and clear out both sides. But our opponent gets a lot of resources in the meantime in the form of treasure takens. But I think we're best off just trying to keep their board clean of creatures. And, you know, they can have a bunch of mana, but if it doesn't go anywhere, then that doesn't really bother us. So I'm not going to fire off this Fury just yet. Right, this time they use their Fable, they bin 2 cards. Our opponent can attack pretty freely here because we don't have a creature with more than 1 power available to us. Let's just hope their follow-up isn't too spooky. A 2 power creature. Right, they're putting a lot of resources into all this mana. So what are they going to play? Another Fable. Okay, so we can sweep out both of these tokens on our next turn. That's pretty good. Let's get Sagaing. So we're getting a Mox here. Or are we getting the Grindstone? If we get the Grindstone, I think we should probably be getting the Mox here. And this accesses more spells for us. Alright, so let's do this. Exiling Goblin Engineer. This means we have Source to Plowshares up as well. Alright, our opponent's going to see that we don't have another land. But we do have spells we can cast from the situation we're in. So that's pretty exciting still. So a little bash for 3. And we're just going to be the beatdown we want to see in the world. It's got a plow if we need it. Next turn we can play a Painted Servant. We could play a Faerie of the Mirror Breaker. We've got a decent selection of options here. I'd quite like to sweep up both of these reflections with 1 Fury, if possible. Drawing a land that allows us to cast something like a Fable whilst holding up Plow would be ideal. Alright, they binned off a single card there, just assuming Spirit Guide. 6 mana. Trumpeting Carnosaur. When this enters the battlefield, discover 5. Okay. For those who don't know, discover is kind of like Cascade. A Blood Moon. Okay. This is a pretty sick combo as well. Copying this. Let's just say no to this guy right now. So our future as a Sagas are looking pretty bad. So we only have 2 mana here. Are we deploying a Goblin Engineer? Are we holding up this Plow for more shenanigans? I think I kind of would feel safer holding up this Plow. I'd like to have been able to cast the Painter, but Blood Moon is stopping us. So we can sweep both of these away in a sec with our probably pitching our Fable to the Fury, given we don't have any mana sources, but we'll see what we draw next turn and reappraise the situation then. So the reason we're holding up the Plow is in case our opponent has something really scary they can put in and then copy straight away. Just leaving ourselves the most options because we've got the game under control. We've got a full grip of cards. We just need to make sure that we live long enough to deploy them. Our opponent going to get in for some damage here, or they're going to hold back and do the Reflection of Kiki Jiki trick where you copy your other reflections over and over again. That's not going to work because of our Fury. But our opponent obviously doesn't know that. Do we draw a land or do we draw another spell? Pyrokinesis. Sure. What do they pitch to that out of curiosity? A Blood Moon, sure. So our opponent is tapped out on cards over there. I think we have to get rid of the... I think it's the Fable here. That's a mistake. We should have played the Painted Servant and pitched the redundant Painted Servant or the Ensnaring Bridge. Alright, so we'll sweep those out. Oh no, we can't play the Painted Servant, can we? Yeah, so our opponent gets to keep some blockers here. Or keep a blocker. These will still die at the beginning of the next end step. Alright, so we'll sweep them out. And we don't get to play any spells because our Mox is turned off. That's what that Pyrokinesis did. Yes, no, so we did make a mistake of playing the Painter because their Pyrokinesis did the work. Okay. A Great Furnace would be a great draw. It's still an artifact even under Blood Moon. Alright, this is a pretty real Magic the Gathering card for us right now. Well, not right now, but it's a 1/1 attacker. But it can also mess with our own artifacts as well as our opponents. We just need to find some. This is a sort of resource. Like I said, it's a 1/1 attacker. I'll take it. It speeds up our whole clock by a turn. Bam, 4. Alright. Goblin aggro, here we go. Oh. That's a pretty savage one. Blood Moon was the card they pitched again. Alright, come on. Right, it's an artifact, so that's something. What are we going to get rid of here? Creatures give them +1/+1 counters, I believe. Or is it... They always get +1/+1 counters. I don't remember. We'll get rid of the Similar Spirit Guide, though. I think it's they get +1/+1 counters and the abilities from creatures. So that might save us 1 damage down the line. Great Furnace, please. Or something. Wooded Foothills. I will take it. And we will name blue. Alright. We're nearly there. Our Mox Opal works again, so that's a huge deal for us right now. Goblin Engineer. Show me the Grindstone. So we've got their graveyard covered for any weird shenanigans that might happen with their Soul Cauldron combo. Obviously, the best thing they can do with Soul Cauldron is just exile our own Grindstone. But if we find a red, well, any mana source here, then we get to kill our opponent. Unless they've got an Emrakul or something in their deck. They might. Sometimes you find decks have one Emrakul in the sideboard just to make their Painter matchup easier. If that's the case, then we can just pivot into Phyrexian Dragon Engine, which beats for 4, and that will end the game very quickly. Our opponent's got 4 cards in hand, so they've got to have something over there. Shadow Skull Smashing on our Engineer, sure. Let's attack for 1. Let's deploy a Goblin Engineer. Let's go and get this Dragon Engine. Or is it the Breya's Apprentice here? I think it might be the Breya's Apprentice, actually. Because we've got good cards in hand. Like, these 2 Swords to Plowshares are things we really want in this matchup anyway. So I don't really want to have to pitch them if I don't have to. Let's see another smashing here. Chalice of the Void, X = 1. Right, Dragon Engine looks better now. We did not find a mana source. But we can do our thing at end of turn. I could play out this Painted Servant so we have redundancy for a single removal spell. But if our opponent's playing the 4 mana blow up a bunch of artifacts your opponent controls, I guess doesn't matter either. But they can do the one where it pings everything for 3 damage. And that would be pretty savage for taking out both of our painters. So I think I'm not going to play it. We can just turn the Solar Lantern into a Grindstone. And then try and kill our opponent. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Let's see if we can get our Grindstone before the Soul Cauldron comes to get us. Our opponent's got 2 mana up. Alright, we've got the GGs there. That was a really good set of games, actually. Lots of back and forth and interesting interactions and stuff. But we managed to come away with the victory. So we are 2-0 going into round 3. On the play for round 3. Yeah, we can turn one Fable if we want to. I think we keep this. Our opponent was the trophy winner from last season who gave us that sweet Hogak deck that we played a while ago. I just apparently the last round we played against was against their friend as well. Alright, so I don't think we're going to play this turn 1 Fable because we're going to lose our city if we do that. Although it's quite a big... Yeah, I think we're going to... Yeah, I think I've convinced myself. I'm going to go in on it. Let's be big and splashy and do the thing here. Alright, no counter spells. That's alright. This gives us the mana back anyway. Now we can make a 4-drop next turn. Not that we really have 4-drops apart from Karn, which isn't in our hands. So, but we can also just make another Fable next turn and just start spamming out loads and loads of treasure tokens. An Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox. We're going to get goblins here. A Blood Moon goes underneath it into a Bombardiers. Alright, that's pretty scary for us. I don't think they're going to kill our Shaman token because that's a lot of resources they'd have to do. And that's the Chrome Mox and the kind underneath it. Oh wow. They just they fancied it, do they? Swords to Plowshares. Right, we don't need this Dragon Engine. And I don't think one is Pyroblast, so that's quite easy. Plow isn't really doing anything for us. Would have been nice if we drew the land for it. If we play out the Fable here, I think we are out on the Fable. But it's awkward. Like our opponent did pitch 2 cards to deal with the front side of our Fable, and we do get the back side. But unfortunately the City of Traitors and the Lotus Petal have gone, so it's kind of a bit of a wash on that front. But we need to keep the cards flowing. We need to keep some lands flowing. Name Sticker Goblin. Alright, so this is goblins with main deck Blood Moon. Alright, so we're going to see here. 5 mana, that's not enough, but they will be throwing their Name Sticker Goblin at our Goblin Shaman token because they can just look at our mana situation and go, we're going to get you. Okay, they're going to play a Seaman Spirit Guide and attack. And we're going to lose our Shaman token probably. Well, they might even just start going to face with this. That's perfectly reasonable too. Alright, they're just throwing the Spirit Guide. Best to keep the Goblin around because the Goblin has synergies from like Goblin Lords and things like that. Alright. Yes, I would like to use his ability. What are we getting rid of? I think Breya's Apprentice needs to go. I think it's probably the Painter's Servant. Okay, so we have a removal spell now. So we can see what our opponent does and then try and remove... I'd like to remove this Broadsword Bombardiers, but if our opponent plays a Sticker Goblin, maybe we don't really have that choice. Oh, let's plow this Bombardiers. Okay. I don't want to trade my Reflection for this Sticker Goblin, because once we have 2 Reflections, we can double them up and have all the blockers we need then. Great Furnace. Genuinely happy with this draw. Let's get a Goblin Engineer. Put Grindstone into the graveyard and pass. So we can make a copy of our Reflection and block with our Reflection. So our opponent shouldn't be attacking us this turn. So we might have turned the corner, but our opponent almost certainly has a Muxus. The way that they did that Sticker Goblin, and the best thing they could do was play a Seaman Spirit Guide. Let's make a copy and go to blocks. Alright. Seaman Spirit Guide, sure. A Pyroblast. That's pretty handy. So, plan here is if we put the Grindstone in, we need another mana is kind of the issue here. So I'm just going to play out the Painter here. We'll name blue. And this gives us the ability to counter any spell our opponent plays or blow up any permanent because of this Pyroblast. So we're in a very good spot now. A Fable, I don't think that's worth us fighting over. We're trying to fight over things like Muxus and stuff. Although they don't have a Muxus if that's what they're playing with that amount of mana, so that's interesting. So they haven't got any good attacks here. If we draw a land, we get to win the game. We did not draw a land. Okay, so what we do here is we copy the Plaintiff Servant, and then we use that to turn it into a Grindstone, and then we kill our opponent next turn. There's lots of cool, tricky stuff in Painter decks. They're really fun to play. All right, let's not get killed by Muxus. We have this Pyroblast, which should help. All right. So this copies this guy. Hit Grindstone. All right, our opponent sees what we're doing, so we managed to get game 1. Excellent. I would like Swords to Plowshares. I would like these Lightning Bolts. I would like this Fury, and I'm pretty interested in this Ethersworn Canonist. We do not require Soulguide Lantern. These Pyroblasts don't feel amazing, and that's already more cards than we need to cut, so we get to bring one of these back in if we want it. I'll take a Pyroblast as a potential catch-all removal spell. And this seems an acceptable approach to me. So we have Welder into Plow, or well, we have Plow or Welder into Fable. I will keep this. We probably have to hold up the Plow for turn 2. Faerie Macabre Breaker, sure. There's a Saga. I think we're just going to play out this Bloodstained Mire and be ready with a Swords to Plowshares. We don't care too much about Blood Moon apart from this as a Saga in our hand. I'm not sure if they've kept Blood Moons in, given that our deck is more or less mono-red. Right, so they're going to come in with their Goblin. Can't do much about this. I don't want to waste my Plow on this when our opponent's got scarier things like Bombardiers. Like maybe we could have stranded our opponent mana-wise, but yeah, they were just sandbagging a land for the second main phase anyway. 4 mana, Caves of Chaos Adventurer. That is worth Swords to Plowsharing. And I will do this now because it's efficient with our mana, because we're going to want mana next turn to do stuff. This is going to be tough to beat. So our opponent probably isn't Turbo Muxus. They're just like mono-red with Sticker Goblin. That's interesting. Our opponent is a bit of an innovator. So, okay, so this turn we get Plateau. Take out this Caves of Chaos Adventurer. And now what are we doing? I think our best bet is the Fable here. Alright. Get this on the go. Alright, so the initiative is ticking. Okay, they're forging up their Shaman so they can attack into us. Yep, some Reflections pop in as well. We're in a bit of a tough spot. So we're probably going to be cycling away. So Karn can get us Ensnaring Bridge, but Ensnaring Bridge isn't going to beat... Oh, yikes. This gets to start copying next turn as well. So that's just free Lava Axes for free. Yikes. I don't think we're beating this. So they can blow up our Goblin Shaman token. So we need to draw a Fury. That would help here. We get to strip out the Reflection and the Bombardiers. But we are on 11. And we're about to go to 6. Get rid of Karn and the Canonist here. We did not draw the Fury. I think that's us done. Let's go to game 3. I like how we sideboarded. I don't have any problems with it. I think we just go in and see how we do. Right. We are on the play. Okay, this hand seems nice. I'll keep this. I'm going to name red with this Painted Servant because we have the Fury this time. It might help our opponent's Pyrokinesis. Our opponent's also told us they're on the exact same deck as the person before. They're like teammates who are trying to build it. So I do not want to get smashed up by a Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Mox is pretty good. If we draw a Grindstone, we can just win next turn, which is pretty scary for our opponent. Maybe that's why they're holding back, so that we can't do that. Interesting. But the reason we named red is so we can pitch lands to our engineer. Right, let's go and get ourselves a plateau. It is a plain, so. Right. Engineer, let's just tunnel straight for this Grindstone. I will play this out so we can interact with a creature using Swords to Plowshares. I don't believe our opponent has any flash threats here, so we will go and take our little 1 damage. But this hand from us has been very potent. Maybe they do have... Oh, they got the Trumpeting Carnosaur, of course. Sure. That's fine, though. Like, if we find another artifact, we get to put the Grindstone into play, and then we can activate the Grindstone and then turn it into a painter. So this is what I would describe as a problem. We can plow this and attack. It's a thing we're allowed to do. Alternatively, we can just untap and Fury this. That seems a little bit stronger. I think we might be alright here. Smash this guy. We get to take the initiative here, which gets us another red source if we need that. Pyrokinesis, just to stop us taking the initiative. We're still left with a Fury, and we have a removal spell in hand, though. So, this game is finely poised. I think our opponent, this turn of our opponents is crucial. If they can remove our Fury, then I think their chance of winning are quite high. If they don't find an answer to this Fury right now, then I think we are likely to win this game. This is the big crunch turn. Right, opponent is playing a Fury of their own. Alright, so this is kind of the situation where I said if they remove our creature, we probably lose. Alright, so we need to find, like, a Painted Servant here is fine. Okay, I will lightning bolt this. Just get it gone. But our opponent still has the initiative, which is the problem. Okay, they got another threat. They do. A threat that is actually 2 threats, so it's going to be tough. Alright, Urza Saga is good, but I think it might be too slow here. The situation we're in, because they're going to go into the Throne of the Dead 3, and if they put a Trumpeting Carnosaur into play off of Throne of the Dead 3, it's pretty sick technology. Alright, there is the Skeleton. So another Fury would be a nice draw for us. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Yikes, that's pretty good. So I think we have to plow whatever they try and put a counter on here. Right, thinking about the Soul Cauldron to force the extra damage. Let's exile this. And then this has a trigger. We target this, we plow it. Not that helps us a great deal, but we've got to make the plays that we can make. So, is it better to have a Karn here? So, again, we can go and get Ensnaring Bridge, but what does Ensnaring Bridge actually do for us? It means that we die slowly to the initiative, and that's probably not good enough. Shutting off their Soul Cauldron is pretty nice, but are we supposed to get the Saga going here? We have 1 Grindstone on our deck. If we do the Saga, that gives us an out of Painter. Oh, this is tough. I think we are supposed to make some constructs here. Alright. What flavour of horrors can we expect? A big broadside bombardiers that we can't do anything with. Yeah. I think that's us done. Yeah, we're not being that bombardiers, I don't think. Like, we're taking 9 this turn. And then they also throw Fable. No, they can't throw Fable. They can throw Cauldron for another 4, which is exactly lethal. So, that was the match. It was kind of tight in places. I think Broadside Bombardiers is just very scary to play against. And Pyrokinesis and Fury in their deck is quite a lot too. But, alright, we are 2-1 now. Let's go to round 4. Oh, we've got a fun Welder hand here. I'm definitely going to give this one a go. I do like the hands where you kind of do all the Welder shenanigans, so sign me up. Painter decks as they were meant to be. Just some goblins doing some engineering and welding, and all of a sudden you win the game. Alright, Underground Sea Go suggests to me that we're... If it was a combo deck like Doomsday, you'd expect some kind of cantrip or something, unless they just have a turn 2 go. So that's still a possibility. Press Lotus Petal for the purposes of days here. Not that I particularly care if our Welder gets dazed, but we can at least represent something as well and give our opponent something to think about, like a Red Blast. Right, a polluted Delta from our opponent and nothing else. Interesting. Well, if they're a graveyard deck, we can have that covered if we want it. So, what are we looking for here? I want to play this Goblin Engineer and see if this resolves. It does resolve. Okay. So there is part of me that wants to play this Soulguide Lantern so that we have that option if our opponent is like a scam deck. But do we care about them if they are a scam deck? I think we can probably just go around that, right? We should just lean into what we can do. Okay, Undercity Sewers. We might regret this then. This is one of the new lands that lets you Surveyor 1 when it comes in. So people are using them in Reanimator shells at the moment. Careful study. Alright, I think we might regret this not using of the Solgai Lantern. Yep. Definitely going to regret that. Wasn't expecting blue-black Reanimator, to be honest. I was fully... Like, if they were like a scam deck, then that's not so bad for us. Like, I was expecting maybe they are, you know, getting a Troll or a Grief back, and that's fine. But nope. We're just getting boppoed pretty hard here. Entomb, Intractor, Reanimate, Grief, Lotus Petal, Force of Will, Brainstorm. Well, obviously there's a load of good cards there, because that's what happens when you play Atraxo. This Force of Will is going to jam up our Ensnaring Bridge, but we can actually go. So they chose Grief, Reanimate, Lotus Petal, Force of Will, Underground Sea. Alright. Here is a Grief. They're going to see how close we came to greatness. We could have just played that Saga Lantern and really clowned our opponent. I think it was free to do it more or less as well. The only thing I was worried about is if we tried that and our opponent had a Daze, we'd have been jammed up with no artifacts in play for a turn. And everyone gets Breya's Apprentice up and running. Obviously now that feels awkward, but I'm going to get this Archon of Cruelty on the go. They are. Yikes. Very punished with Saga Lantern. But we played around Days thinking they were scam. And sometimes you make the wrong call. Would I have his Engineer in play or this Breya's Apprentice? And we'll discard. Alright, our plan is to try and win this game through like infinite counter spells and discard if we need to. Which I think we can do, realistically. We've got the Ensnaring Bridge that cuts off their lines of attack. Alright, our opponent doesn't want to have to play against the Ensnaring Bridge. So they've given us the win there. Interesting. Okay. I would like some Faerie Macabres. That's a good start. Do I think this is a Magus of the Moon matchup? Not really. We just want to kind of nail their graveyard. So Ethersworn Canonist can stop like a big explosive turn of theirs, so that's okay. I don't really want these Furies because our opponent can reanimate them and get us. But we have seen Griefs. So do we want answers to Griefs? I think so. But our Pyroblasts are pretty good here still. We've got a few Plows. That's probably enough. Right, let's go in like this. It's an interesting one. It doesn't do anything against our opponent's Entomb hands unless we think just ploughing their guy is going to be helpful. I think we can do better. Alright, this is better. Keep this. And I believe in the heart of the cards. I'm going to throw away one of the lands. We're on the draw, so we have more turns to try and find it. Right, I will just start out with a Welder here. I don't think holding up a Red Blast is going to work here. Here's the Entomb. We already have a Faerie Macabre ready to go. So I'm not worried about this one. Archon of Cruelty is what they've gone for. Good old-fashioned Fairy. Alright, our opponent is just off it. They've had enough. They weren't here for a long time. They're here for a good time, and that's not what they had. Alright, so going to the final round with 3-1. Let's see if we can get the 4-1. Alright, I don't really want to keep a one-lander like this. Especially when we're on the play. Let's mulligan. Are we playing this game again, are we, Deck? Okay. Do I want to play the Does Our Opponent Have Wasteland? I will keep this because we have the win rolled up in a few turns. So just play this Grindstone and pass. Volcanic Island. Ah, a bit of Delver. Oh, they're probably going to wasteland us right into the dirt, aren't they? Alright, I got Creature in the bin. That's one of the harder ones to find usually. Which is Bauble goes bye-bye. Alright, City of Traitors. Might be better than Ancient Tomb here because of our life total and how important it is to have one. I think I'm going to spam some tokens here and then get the Mox Opal so we can start doing plows and blasts and things. We've got enough time to play a few turns of this game instead of just trying to race to the combo. It's not like our opponent's going to kill us on turn 3 or 4. Dragon's Rage Channeler. That's a pretty good card. It's going to be a Ponder. It is. So these are both going to be 3/3s. Understood. Right. So we take a hit to 17. Fable of the Mirror. Oh my god. I missed my token. That was devastating, actually. That was a horrible misclick right there. That could be the entire game. Yikes. So we can go and get a Soul Guide Lantern, but I think we need to get the Mox Opal here. Yikes. Yeah, that was a bit of a miss there. We could have 2 4/4s now. That could have opened up a whole selection of different lines for us. Like wasting their graveyard with a Soul Guide Lantern and just getting in loads of damage. Right, so we're going to lose our only land. Yep. Let's just plow one of these. Right, our opponent's brainstorming in response to our plow. They're going to find something to interfere with us, like a Daze is pretty good here. A Lightning Bolt to kill our constructs and take us off Metalcraft is rather devastating as well, compounding our misclick of passing the turn. Okay, a Daze. That's terrible news for us. So we're going to get cracked for 6. We need a Soul Land, ideally, so we can plow again. And then jam a Painter as well. I felt like our opponent had to dig for this Daze, though. Alright. Well, imagine if we had 2 4/4s to crack back with. Another friend. A Fury. To attack. They might take this trade because of the Mox Opal. Alright. All the creatures are dead. We need to find a land to kill someone like a Murktide. But has our opponent got like a 4-threat hand? Okay, they're going to have a Murktide here. So we need to find an artifact that we can play. So 3 of our 3/0 drops to turn on our Mox Opal, or any land in our deck. Yeah, any land in our deck, because then we can just play the Painter Servant. Alright, that's a land. Let's play this. Our opponent didn't have any interaction last turn. Alright, they've drawn a Force of Will this turn. Yikes. Okay, so we're going to take 8 this turn and probably get Lightning Bolt to the face and die. If we'd have made that construct token, we win this game, I think. But alas, that is not the situation. Yep, that misclick might have cost us this game. Now, our opponent's still got 2 cards in hand. We don't necessarily know what they are. So there's a possibility, but they must have drawn that Force of Will right then. Awkward. Okay. So, I quite like a plow here. That seems like a nice tool to have access to. The Karns don't feel amazing in this matchup, but we do like bridges in general. Are we trimming both the Karns for a plow and a bridge? I'd rather have this Fury. Do I like a Fury or would I like a bridge, actually? Fury is okay at stripping away some of the little guys. A bridge is just a better stopgap measure there. Quite tempted for another Red Blast, but I'm not really sure how to fit one in here. So I think we're just going to... I think 5 is plenty, along with the plows as well. Sure. We're going to go back in. This is no good. We don't have enough action. This has got action. Sure, we'll keep this. What are we going to throw away? I don't think we want double Saga hand. No, I don't think we want double Saga. Just take the 1. I will lead off on the Saga and see if our opponent's got wastelands and things. Right, they probably boarded in Meltdown, but obviously they have to find it. They've probably only got 1 or 2 copies. And we've got a perfectly fine game plan anyway. We can just play an Engineer or a Dragon Engine and do stuff with that. Alright. Goodbye. As I say, we're just starting the game again. A Great Furnace. Not the one I want to lead off on because it's exposed to meltdowns. We kind of need to sandbag this for when we need to use our Goblin Engineer. So we're holding up a Pyroblast, but we're almost certainly saving that for a key counter spell or an opposing Murktide that threatens us in with like a 2-turn clock or whatever. Alright. I'm going to play a card that I don't care if it resolves or not. If you want to daze this, that's fine. They're not going to have XR removal, so it's just a threat. And then once it's in the graveyard, we can start doing some stuff with it in a bit. This is a really good tester because this is actually quite a good threat. So it's quite likely to get an answer from our opponent whilst not actually caring if it gets answered, because it's something we want in our graveyard anyway. So I quite like that. Right, we're in with a Dragon Engine. Now they might just opt to spend a removal spell on it, but again, that's a removal spell for a thing that we can reuse from the graveyard. Right, our opponent's cracked a fetch, got a Volcanic Island, and played a Dragon's Rage Channeler. Turns on something like a Fatal Push against our Dragon Engineer if they have that, but they might not have that, so we get to untap. Let's see if we get to attack with some success. Alright, we get to take a chunk out of our opponent's life total. Let's crack this Bloodstained Mire. I think I'm going to play the Engineer and not tap our Ancient Tomb. Our life total is a really important resource in this matchup. We can tap it for a daze if we need to. A Hydroblast, sure. So the downside of that is we don't get to Red Blast back. But I think I'm more interested in Red Blasting a Murktide Regent. That's the scarier thing here. A Lightning Bolt. That's pretty good. Goodbye, friend. It's a follow-up threat. No, it's a Brainstorm. Yeah, so if we'd have tried to protect our Dragon Engine with our Goblin Engineer with a Pyroblast, we're still going to end up quite far behind on board anyway. Whereas at least now we don't lose to a Murktide. We might just lose this Dragon's Rage Channeler though, so maybe it's worth taking the 2 points to get the Goblin Engineer through and we don't have any other action. But I guess at the time we did have action. We can just bring back this Dragon Engine. That will cost us our Pyroblast though. So I think it's going to depend on what we draw, because we need to do something this game. Another Red Blast. I could just chuck all these cards in the bin and draw some more. We're only taking one a turn, so I think I'm interested in playing another turn and getting some value out of these blasts first. Because whilst we're only being struck for one a turn, I think it's worth using our resources. Because this matchup can be quite grindy. And if our Phyrexian Dragon Engine is just looting instead of drawing us 3 cards, that's not going to feel great. A Brainstorm. I'm going to go after this one quite aggressively here. Because we want to get the value out of our blasts here. I'd like to see like a Murktide that we then get to blast away. That would be really nice. Right, just coming in for 1. It's going to be the second main phase Murktide. We're going to be very rewarded for our play. Feels like we might be. The way they exile cards suggests to me as well they don't have a second Murktide. Because you normally leave some instants in so you can then power up the second one and the first one at the same time. Alright, we're getting a Force of Will back. So our Pyroblast ended up being a little hymn to Turak. That's pretty good. Right, so they get themselves a 7/7. So that is a problem for us. A Grindstone. Do we play out the Grindstone then the Engine? I think so. Please let me draw 3 cards. None of these are a Painter's Servant, unfortunately. Alright, let's attack and see if they block or not. They might just take the 4. But we're losing this creature anyway, so we may as well give it the old college try. Breya's Apprentice does get to chum block for a turn with its Thopter. But we are in need of finding a Painter's Servant. A Meltdown where X equals 1. So that's going to take out 2 of our permanents. It's going to stop us being able to just draw Painter's Servant and win the game. Our opponent's going to hit us down to 10. And this means that both of these threats are lethal. So if we put Breya's Apprentice into play, it will not matter. So that is the end of this game. And the end of the league. So we finished with a 3-2. And the last one we made a misclick by not making our token. That did actually end up costing us that game. We got absolutely spanked in game 2. So we should have got a third game out of that last round. Could have gone either way, to be honest. Meltdown is a powerful card. I think they are better post-board than we are in that matchup. Just because of things like Meltdown are such powerful haymakers. But it's not like a unwinnable matchup or anything. So maybe we could have gone 4-1 here. The other one we lost was to a matchup where we just played the exact 75 and won. So that's certainly a very winnable matchup. But let's talk about the list. So we did all the sort of paintery stuff that you'd expect. I did have a little bit of trouble with some lands in this this particular league. I think I did feel the loss of some of the fast mana that you would normally expect from Painter decks. So what was kind of the stereotypical builds of Painter for a long time were 3 Lotus Petals, 3 Simian Spirit Guides. So we have 2 Lotus Petals and no Simian Spirit Guides. That's quite a different approach to building this one compared to other ones. And I did feel the mana a few times. Like there was a couple of games where we lost because we didn't have the mana we needed. So that didn't feel amazing. Obviously, if you play a bunch more games, you get a better feel to see if that is an issue or not, or if it was just a bit of variance. But that's something that it felt to me like we could have done with. Another problem as well is by not having a load of Lotus Petals and things, we didn't always have enough artifacts to turn on Mox Opal. We didn't have enough artifacts to do our engineering sometimes either. So that was something I would consider. The Karn didn't seem amazing, but it did win us a game. But it's a 4 mana play when we have a lot less fast mana than I'd expect from this deck. And on top of that, it's also not the best Karn board, right? Like we didn't have a liquid metal coating, which could have pretty much just won us the game on the spot. Now we did win that matchup anyway, but I did feel the loss of not having that. Now I understand the Thought of Amethyst is going to be good against some of these Storm decks. And that totally makes sense. But I did feel like we were not the best Karn deck that we could be. And I know Lightwalker, who I mentioned at the start, they occasionally put out a video running Karn. They have a different build to this that has more of that fast mana in, and I think that's probably better if you're doing Karn, because Karn is something you need to get down early, because if you put it down in the mid game, your opponent's quite likely to have creatures to pressure and it's not going to do as much. The earlier you get it, the more powerful it is, which is obviously the same for a lot of things, but as a permanent that just kind of gets swept up by other things, you know. At least a creature you can say, okay, I'm not going to block with this creature. Whereas Karn, they can directly attack it and just put it in the bin. So it's an awkward one, even though you can get value when you play it and minus it. It's not getting us combo pieces either, unless they've been removed. So I'm not really sure I particularly like it in this build. I wouldn't mind seeing some more fast mana instead, maybe. I'd also like to try one of the builds with 4 Theolingus at some point and see how that feels too. Because that's just a nice sort of fair way where you can just play a really good card and just get a load of card advantage out of it. And, you know, maybe play that and then set up behind a Ensnaring Bridge that you tutor off your engineer, and then your opponent just can't ever take the Monarch and you're eventually going to draw the stuff to win the game. But yeah, the deck performed pretty well. You know, it did its thing. We did some, you know, fairish ways of winning, you know, blowing up opponent's creatures and just kind of grinding our way through. And eventually it ended up being that we would be winning that game with a Painter's Servant combo. But there were games where we didn't necessarily need it and we could have just, you know, carried on the beatdown and that would have been fine too. There's a lot of different gears to this deck, you know, when we're going into Breya's Apprentice, or we're doing Phyrexian Dragon Engine, or we're trying to speed combo, or, you know, what are we doing with our tutors? What are we discarding with our Fables? There's a lot of play to this deck for a deck that doesn't have cantrips. So I can certainly see why it's such a popular deck with lots of appeal. Also, the Painter Discord is a really good place. The people there are really friendly, really knowledgeable, very passionate about the deck, and very welcoming to new people getting into it. So I definitely recommend it. If you like this deck, you should check that out. You should also check out Lightwalker's channel, which I will put in the description below. It really is the best Painter content you're going to see out here. Alright, I think that's me done for today, so I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbodepths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbodepths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.